All right, bang on 7:30 this Wednesday morning, I want to say. It's hump day. We have, as ever, Eoin Sheehan is with us until 10 o'clock this morning. Eoin, how are you?
Good morning, Ger.
Also with us this morning, Nathan Murphy. Nathan, how are you?
Morning, everybody.
What's rare is wonderful, Nathan. Although you're here most weeks.
But it's not that rare, Ger. I'm probably here more than you at this stage.
Hey, that's just because I had COVID, man. That's just because I had COVID. How are you getting on?
Well, good to see you both back in
You've managed to avoid it somehow.
So far. It's inevitable, though, isn't it, really?
When you wrap yourself up in a bubble and don't experience any life, at least.
Well, there is part of that. You look back at Christmas and go, I didn't get COVID, but I also did absolutely nothing of note or that left any memory.
Oh yeah. You're gonna come
life.
on here and tell us about how shit your Christmas was with me and Eoin, who were like basically in prison for a week.
I had a great Christmas, Ger. You were the only one who had a crap Christmas, to be honest.
Well, I was going to say, I think by all accounts, Eoin had a great Christmas, or week before Christmas.
Well,
that's probably the issue, was it?
Christmas.
That was the issue, yeah.
We thought that they were going to take him out and scientifically investigate how he had managed to avoid it. Because he literally did absolutely everything you could do to get it.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't do one of those TikTok videos that almost everybody of your age and generation did over Christmas, which was they showed the video of their antigen test going, I don't know how this happened, and then the flashback to them in the nightclub 48 hours earlier with 500 people.
And the rest.
Yeah, I did think there was like a good kind of level of advertising going on for people who did have positive tests over the Christmas. So, just too humble for that, Nathan.
Well, speaking of positive COVID tests over the Christmas, Novak Djokovic obviously did test positive, we think. The QR code of his positive test was actually giving a negative thing for a while when it was posted, but then they fixed that. It eventually turned positive. It was like a slow release positive QR code, a bit like Oxy. And in the meantime, overnight he has issued a statement which kind of fesses up to a lot of the stuff that he's been accused of by people, particularly is it Ben Rothenberger, the reporter on Twitter,
yeah,
who had done an analysis of the Instagram and Twitter feed of Novak Djokovic since he had apparently tested positive with that QR code, which I repeat was giving a negative result. And Djokovic is like, oh yeah, about all that stuff. Well, let me just talk you through exactly what happened. Nothing really to see here. I mean, I did incorrectly fill out my forms, but it wasn't me who filled them out. It was the people who fill out my forms on my behalf. And my agent is very sorry about that. He has apologised for lying on a document, incorrectly ticking the box. He just ticked the wrong box. That was all. Just ticked the wrong box about my... He didn't know I'd been in Spain in the 14 days before I travelled to... He just was unaware of my movements. Or was it just a tick in the wrong box? That bit's not quite cleared up, but I think we have some of the screen grabs. Do we have some of the screen grabs of the Instagram? No, we don't have some of the screen grabs of the Instagram. Okay. And my Instagram is now going to my stories as opposed to actually to the Djokovic thing. You got it?
So yeah, we go through some of the statements.
Yeah.
Here we go. So Novak Djokovic obviously posted a statement. What are we talking here? 5 hours ago at this point, so 2:30 in the morning, our time. I want to address the continuing misinformation about my activities in attendance at events in December in the lead up to my positive PCR COVID test result. I do think that's like a bit of a statement of intent straight away in the first paragraph of the statement. The misinformation, like why did the misinformation exist? Was it because there was a vacuum of information created by you and perhaps you let that sit there, or was there actually some misinformation that was peddled?
Or is the misinformation actually not misinformation but factually correct, that you were doing all this stuff when you were supposed to be isolating, which it turns out his statement actually is like this kind of gotcha, I'm an innocent man moment, but it's like, yeah, I am totally guilty. I was wandering around. Having done a PCR test, I still wandered around. I was asymptomatic.
Yeah.
How was I supposed to know?
So he goes through the timeline of events. So he says, I attended a basketball game in Belgrade on 14th of December, after which it was reported that a number of people tested positive for COVID-19. So the basketball game in Belgrade is... this is the pesky event that gave Novak Djokovic COVID allegedly. Despite having no COVID symptoms, he took a rapid antigen test on the 16th of December, so that's 2 days later, which was negative. And out of an abundance of caution, I think that's a very interesting phrase, also took an official and approved PCR test on that same day. So utilising this abundance of caution. He says he was asymptomatic, he felt good, he had not received notification of a positive PCR test until after that event. And the next day, on 18th of December, remember, still using an abundance of caution, I was at my tennis centre in Belgrade to fulfil a long-standing commitment for a L'Equipe interview and photo shoot. I cancelled all other events except for the L'Equipe interview. I felt obliged to go ahead and conduct a L'Equipe interview as I didn't want to let the journalist down. L'Equipe clearly have Novak Djokovic nudes. I mean, he cancelled everything else, but L'Equipe, I mean, he's got some sort of love for
the body issue. I don't think he'd care about that. Can I just? There was the bit where the whole world, as far as I know, if you're in the scenario where you've gone for a PCR test, what do you do before you get your results? What's the rule? If you go for a PCR test, what are you supposed to do? You
isolate, Jer.
What are you supposed to do, Nathan?
You isolate, Jer.
Because you might be positive. Because you don't know you're not positive because you got a PCR test. That's as far as I'm aware. Now maybe you've all been getting PCR tests and wandering around smearing your love juice all over everybody. But anytime we've had to go and wait for PCR tests, remember there was a waiting time of like a week to get your results at the early stages. Things have improved. It's now about 48 hours in most cases. Some people, like, I know you've got one back in the same day, Nathan. You're obviously very lucky. Southside Dublin, obviously, better resourced than maybe it's good. Maybe it's just a good Mayo connections. It's like a little secret green and red thing
straight
you
to
stick
the top
on
of the queue.
But he didn't. He was like, I got a PCR test, going to wander around and meet the kids. That's when that photograph was taken of him with the kids. So he's not denying he was doing all these things that he's been accused of doing. He's like, yeah, I did all those things. But like, I was asymptomatic, so screw you.
Like, I mean...
Not vaccinated... asymptomatic, happy to go and shake the hands of the kids. So look, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
And also the Serbian National Postal Service, let's not forget.
When did that happen? He doesn't mention that in the statement.
That was the 16th of December.
Okay. So
that was the...
He's an innocent man when it comes to the post.
Yeah.
Licking the stamps was okay because he was at that stage not shedding.
Like I should say in his statement, like he says that he wore a mask except for when the photograph was being taken in this L'Equipe interview. While I went home after the interview to isolate for the required period, on reflection, this was an error of judgment, and I accept that I should have rescheduled this commitment. So, in fairness to Novak, he says it's an error of judgment.
On the issue of my travel declaration, this was submitted by my support team on my behalf, as I told immigration officials on my arrival, and my agent sincerely apologises for the administrative mistake in ticking the incorrect box about my previous travel before coming to Australia. It's an easy mistake. Have you been in any other countries? No, I don't think so. You weren't in Spain. You didn't put anything up on Instagram about training in Spain, did you? Oh, bollocks. Shit. We got caught.
Yeah, the old Instagram has killed him. I guess it just underlines that Djokovic can't be trusted with any of this. That if he is willing to go out and about while both positive and while waiting a PCR test while unvaccinated,
he doesn't
really
care.
give a damn?
No, he does not care. He does not care. We're living in challenging times, in a global pandemic, and sometimes these mistakes can occur. This was written by the ad copy people for like a major utilities company in the Midwest of America. In these challenging times, human error can occur. We're very sorry for charging you $6 million for your gas last night. Today, my team has provided additional information to the Australian government to clarify this matter. So I'm talking to the government. I'm smoothing it over with them because I'm Billy Big Balls and I'm fixing it. He's not going to make any further comment. And then Australian tennis fans, the best fans in the world.
Yeah, like it's got
star wipe, and we're done.
You'll see about that on Monday.
I think that went pretty well, don't you?
Like it's kind of to a point. We'll see what the immigration department in Australia do at this point, because like there is still one more twist in his tail potentially.
I've been sarcastic.
Sorry. I mean, I'm kind of like just bring this on a little bit, like to see what they do, because this now means that there is kind of like a ball in the Australian court a little bit here. So say, like, I mean, he's going to be in the country, he plays next week. Like, there is still a huge amount of very straightforward questions, I would have thought, that could be asked of Novak Djokovic. Like, is he going to go into his post-match interview room and say no comment to all of these on Monday? When's he due to play? Whatever his first match is. Like, or is he going to continue to do what his brother did the other day and just shut down the press conference at each point that these questions are now brought up? Because like, if you look at what the Der Spiegel story is still maintaining, it's about the dates of these positive tests and the timestamp in these positive tests, and they've got the IT research group Zerfor Shung working on this with Der Spiegel, and said that there is a chance that the positive test is way earlier than what he suggests, or the negative test is way earlier than what he suggests. So returning a negative result was essentially what's allowed him to free up and move around. Whereas there's an allegation out there that actually this is from way before he tested positive for COVID.
Right, and when did he test positive for COVID, and did he actually test positive for COVID? All these are like things that we just need to get answers to. And because he has now admitted that he falsified his travel documents, Australia are within their rights to say, you falsified your travel documents, you've admitted that in public, it's on your own Instagram account, I'm sorry, therefore, as a result of that, you're banned, and you might be banned for 3 years. Like, that's the hardcore Australia, incredibly right-wing immigration policy that, like, the whole thing is a complete mess, Nathan.
Well, clearly, and Australia haven't covered themselves in glory in allowing it to blow up in the way that it has. Like, Novak Djokovic is not going to repent in any way. Like Caitlin Thompson said it last week, he lives in this echo chamber, and he maybe lives in one of the biggest echo chambers in the world, considering he has his internal team who will back him no matter what. But also he has the entire country of Serbia who've got his back and feel that he has done no wrong and that the world is out to get him. So I can't imagine any scenario where, in any of those press conferences, where Novak Djokovic puts his hand up and says, you know what, I made a few mistakes here. Maybe I need to rethink.
He didn't make the mistake.
Maybe I need to educate myself again around vaccinations, around COVID.
That ain't happening.
I think he's coming out of this completely emboldened, thinking, you know what, I've had COVID again, my immune system kicked in, I was just fine, and I'm here in Australia. I'm here to play tennis. I'm going to become the most successful tennis player of all time at the end of these 2 weeks, and the rest of you suckers are getting it all wrong. Why are you all sitting there in your masks?
I wonder, is there going to be, as Logan Roy put it, a blood sacrifice at some point over the next few days? Is Novak Djokovic's agent going to suddenly be available for other work? I mean, is the only way to double down on this?
I don't think so. I don't think you can hang your
Hell yeah.
Unless it's like a temporary suspension and then he's back doing his work for him in 6 months, because like when you're in the inner sanctum of an organisation like that, you know a lot of stuff. Like if the agent was to become disenfranchised somehow, and who knows what would happen. We're in the realms of intense speculation there, but maybe there'll be a blood sacrifice. I can't see it. They seem like a pretty tight-knit bunch. They seem like they all believe the same stuff.
I'm fascinated to see what the reaction inside the stadium is going to be next Monday, Tuesday, when he goes and he plays. Maybe a huge amount of the Serbian population over there go and buy tickets. Maybe
fist fights in the crowd.
Reaction to how he's been treated. And listen, I think you're right. It's shone a light once again on Australia's immigration policy and the fact that he goes into that hotel and there's other people in there who've been there for 9 years, and they're brought to that hotel from one of the many islands that Australia detained people for undercover and under the cover of darkness for years upon years. But the reports we heard out of Australia last week were actually that there was full support for keeping Djokovic out because of the sacrifices the Australian people feel they made. And you could well be right. There could well be fistfights in the crowd next week.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that the Instagram statement is idiotic in that he's admitting to falsifying documents which no country will let you in on. After you've confessed to like, we've done that, I would be, because if you did that in America, when you got to America, you've had your border patrol issues in America in the past, haven't you?
No, I've just been extremely nervous.
Did they not like detain you for like 7 hours and we nearly missed a flight one time?
That was one of our colleagues.
Oh, okay. Was that JP?
Yeah, it was JP. Yeah.
JP. Okay. They were like he like wilted under the pressure. Yes, I am going to do a bit of work. I'm sorry. Like what?
I really hope the US Embassy isn't watching this morning.
It's all right. It's all
Don't
right.
reveal his surname.
Understand.
It could be any JP.
It could be. Well, he's jumping ship.
It's the day of JP Gilbert.
We're screwing the Ray Foley show's
overboard.
next American adventure. Anyway, let's not clip that bit. Like, if this was America and you got your documents wrong, you would need to be like, it would be 6 months of your lawyer writing to them and saying, we're really sorry, it was an accident. And they would be like, still, yeah, okay, you're on probation or you're out for a couple of years. There's no like, grand, we understand. Because the documents aren't that difficult, right? And it's, again, you're kind of supposed to fill in your own immigration documents. That's the other thing that in all this. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to get to play now because of the statement this morning. I think that's like a last desperate attempt to win some political favour by explaining. And the old adage, if you're explaining, you're losing, has never been more true in this case, I think so. But I'd love to see it. I mean, I agree with you. I'd love to see it.
I think we could kind of all do at this point. I think we're all sort of invested in the drama of it. That it's kind of like let's keep this thing going. Obviously, what we saw the other day is it kind of spilling over into bit of violence on the streets, and you're like, God, is that actually what we're all invested in this for? And we're going to feel guilty about feeling excited about this drama in a week's time because, as you say, there might actually be fighting in the stadium.
Yeah. It'll be, the security guards will look after that.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It's 7:45 this morning here on OTB AM. If you've just joined us, you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. You can tweet us at Off the Ball AM, or of course, you can always WhatsApp the show. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. And this is OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. The other major sporting controversy, global sports washing story at the moment, apart from Newcastle and the transfer merry-go-round, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the show, is a press conference that has been given by the golfers who are heading to Saudi Arabia. And this is on the back of the Star this morning. Shane Lowry, I'm a golfer, not a politician. So it's the world's third biggest men's tour. What's this? The DP? So
this is the Asian tour. So
right.
What Shane Lowry is among many, if not most, of the world's top golfers who's going to be playing in Saudi Arabia at the Saudi Arabia Invitational at the beginning of next month. The attitude towards Saudi Arabia has changed somewhat over the last couple of years in golf because Saudi Arabia is trying to go it alone. So we've heard about the Premier Golf League, which at one stage Saudi Arabia was preparing to back for hundreds of millions of pounds. That doesn't seem to be the case. What they are doing now is going in with the Asian Tour. Greg Norman is heading it up, and they are going to run several huge money events on the Asian Tour to go up against the PGA Tour and the European Tour, and to draw the best players in the world away from those tours and bring them to Saudi Arabia. And ultimately what they want is a breakaway tour. But this tournament has been going for the last couple of years. Shane Lowry is probably a little bit surprised at the reaction this year because Shane Lowry signed a 3-year deal with the Saudi Invitational after he won the Open Championship and has played there for the last 2 years. Graham McDowell won this event a couple of years back. So this year, because I think of what's going on with Newcastle and maybe more of a focus on Saudi Arabia and sports washing, and also particularly within golf, what Saudi Arabia is bringing to the table and the rivalry with the PGA Tour. There's obviously a lot of interest in who's going and who's not going.
So it says the event is 4.4 million euros, right? That's what it says in the paper here, but that's not the reality. That's the prize money. But actually, if you show up, you get a lot of cash. Is that what happens?
Basically. So what goes against any reasoning, golfing, sporting reason for going to Saudi Arabia doesn't stack up in any way, because on the same week, the PGA Tour is at Pebble Beach for the AT&T Pro-Am. Pebble Beach, one of the greatest golf courses, one of the most storied, historic golf courses in the world, with a prize fund that will probably hit 10 million this year. So they're not going there for peanuts. The winner will probably get a couple of $1 million. But very few of the top players in the world are going there. They're all going to Saudi Arabia for what you say is a prize fund of pretty much half that. And the reason they're going is because they're getting enormous appearance fees. And it does seem that these are never made public, and there's always speculation. There was a time where it was seen that Tiger would get 2 or 3 million of an appearance fee for going to the Middle East, whereas other players might get 100 grand or 200 grand. And I know even talking about this in Golf Weekly, there was a sense that those players just below the top tier, and Shane would be somewhere in between, despite being a major champion, that they were getting a couple of 100 grand. It seems from all the reports that are coming out that almost everyone who's going is getting at least £1 million, if not a couple of $1 million, to go and play this. So regardless of where you finish, if you go to Saudi Arabia, you stink the joint out, you shoot 76, you finish last, you're getting a couple of million in appearance money.
So the players
now, this isn't obviously a new thing. Like appearance money's always been a thing in golf.
Yeah, with the players going, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, and US-based Europeans such as Fleetwood, Tyrrell Hatton, G-Mac, and Shane Lowry.
And that's only a small portion of the list. The field for the Saudi Invitational will be several times stronger than the field for what will happen at Pebble Beach. So almost all the players who've been asked to go are going. Rory McIlroy's not going, has made it clear he's made a decision that he doesn't feel it's the right thing for his career right now. Tiger Woods had said previously that he wasn't going. And obviously they would be the two biggest draws still in golf. But McIlroy, maybe we need to praise him more for the decision, has decided that right now he's not going to take the Saudi money. He's also the head, as we mentioned before, of the players' union essentially on the PGA Tour, which maybe influences the decision, because the big difference this year for the players is that they had to ask permission to go to the Saudi Invitational. Usually they can go and rock up wherever they want, but now the PGA Tour and the European Tour have made it clear that unless we give you permission to play on the Asian Tour and any of these events that are backed by Saudi money, there could be consequences. But they have rolled over, and because of the funds I think at play, allowed them to play this one event.
You say there that maybe McIlroy deserves a little bit more praise, but I wonder, Nathan, is actually the reason why some golfers have chosen to be a bit cautious about this. Is the reason for that nothing to do with Saudi Arabia's record on human rights, but actually totally to do with golf and the potential new future that Saudi money would bring to golf? Because if you look at what McIlroy said last year, and it was around maybe April, May time, because he's talking about the Super League. He says if you look at what happened last week in Europe with the European Super League and football, people can see it for what it is, which is a money grab, which is fine if that's what you're playing golf for, is to make as much money as possible. Totally fine. Then go and do that if that's what makes you happy. Is McIlroy actually making a political stance here? It seems that it's more to do with the kind of the traditions of golf and what matters to him as a golf professional as much as anything else.
I think he's making a stand because of his role within the PGA Tour, and he's one of those who leads negotiations on behalf of the players, and the PGA Tour have responded to McIlroy and what the players want. They have upped the prize fund massively. They've implemented this PIP plan where McIlroy is one of those who's basically getting money for nothing at the end of the season, as one of the top 10 players in terms of profile. And I think he probably looked at this and thought, is it worth the hassle? I'm sure he remembers the backlash after he played with Trump back in 2016. He's come out since then saying, I wouldn't do it again. And it might be a time of the season where actually McIlroy doesn't want to play. It may not fit into his schedule and may work out quite nicely that he doesn't have to go. So I don't know if he's making a huge political stance and will never turn up in Saudi Arabia. If this tour kicks off, Paul Casey, when this tournament first happened back in, was it 2019, came out and made a big statement of, I'm not going to Saudi Arabia because of the human rights issues, and then went and played the year after, just to see it for himself as to what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that you can't have it both ways, right? I love Shane Lowry, one of my favourite sports people ever. Amazing career, but very disappointed that he's going to play in Saudi Arabia. Just really genuinely disappointed that they've decided that all those golfers have decided that nothing that happens outside of my world is important. I live in a bubble. I live in an echo chamber. It's not a million miles away from the similar criticism that you would have for any of the sports people who are choosing to be selfish rather than part of the rest of the world. It's like, what stories do you decide are important or not important? What's the red line for you when it comes to endorsing a regime or being involved in a country, or are you not a citizen of the world? Or if you are a citizen of the world, then there's a price to pay, and that price is engagement. I think you have to engage with stuff. You can't just put your head down and say, this doesn't matter to me, because what matters? Is it only local politics that matters? Is it not even that? Does nothing matter? And it seems nothing matters at this stage. So for me, that's very disappointing.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing as well. But I'm not in any way surprised, because I think golf is just one massive echo chamber. And where is the red line? So when you talk to any of the golfers about this, the things that come up all the time are the nonsensical growing the game argument, that this is a part of the world where, golf could flourish over the coming years. And we want to really help that happen. Checking it out for themselves, that sort of Paul Casey line of, I've been over there and it hasn't seemed that bad, and it looks as though they're making progress. And if we can be a part of that progress, well, isn't that a good thing? And also then that red line issue of, well, if you're not going to play in Saudi Arabia, where does that stop? Should you play in China? Should you play in Qatar, in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, where the European Tour has been based for decades at this stage, where all their big money tournaments happen, and that is the justification that a lot of the golfers give themselves. Shane Lowry obviously went with the line of, he is a sole trader. It's about making an income for him and his family. This is obviously a very good payday. So do you want to turn that down? And if you turn that down, what else are you going to turn down? Are you not going to go to some of those other countries whose politics you may not agree with? But I think most people feel that there is a red line, and like South Africa is most definitely below that red line. South Africa back in the day was below that red line, and Saudi Arabia right now is.
So
we don't know. We don't know in 10 years' time.
I think that's a good comparison to draw. So a lot of people had to make the decision about whether or not they were going to play in apartheid South Africa, and they decided not to play there in different sports, and it seems to have been important. Historically, it seems to have been important. Like, we all know sports washing works. It's one of the oldest things that's ever happened in human civilization, is that money put on sports events to keep people happy. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening here. It's not about growing the game. It's about establishing Saudi Arabia as a power broker in the world and using the soft power of sport to do so. We see it with Newcastle. We see it with Qatar, and we see it with Abu Dhabi, and we see it with everybody, right? And we've seen it with America in the past, and we've seen it with Britain in the past, and we've seen it with Russia. So that's not to suggest that those other countries weren't at this as well. It's just that you then are part of that. You're choosing to be part of that for money, and that's a choice you've made, but you can't get away from it. Like, the point you're making, golf is an echo chamber, and all the golfers are doing it, and so therefore that throws a blanket over it. That gives you some cover and it helps you sleep at night, but like, I don't know. I don't think you can just go ahead and say, oh, we're on the same massive jumbo, metaphorically here, that arrives, and we all play our golf, and we come out 4 days later, and everybody counts their money, and it's grand. It doesn't feel grand. It feels a bit. You just feel this isn't right.
No, it doesn't feel right at all. But this is just the start of it. And that may also have been a factor in the decision to go, that it's clear that Saudi Arabian money is going to become a huge factor in golf over the coming years. Now, maybe that could have been nipped in the bud 3-4 years ago, where all the leading golfers in the world said, actually, no, we're not going. And that they saw that golf was not an option for them. But you got to think of the sport that golf is, and particularly where it is in America. Like, you sit down and you watch PGA Tour golf coverage, and you could have the CEO of Shell on talking for 10 minutes about how much he loves the environment, because they're the sponsors of the tournament, that there's nothing that golf won't do to take in extra cash. And because of this power grab that's going on with the different tours at the moment, they're going to become even more desperate to get whatever money they can. And I think obviously in Ireland, Shane Lowry playing is going to be a big issue. Gray McDowell is gone and played there before. Very few golfers have made any sort of a stand, and I don't agree with it. I think it'd be great if he wasn't to go, and maybe Shane Lowry's looked at it and thought, if I don't go, am I making a stance here? Am I going to have to sit in interviews and explain my political reasons behind this? Maybe he doesn't feel educated enough to sit there and have that sort of conversation. I'm not sure if that'd be the case. I think people would just say, fair play, well done. Or you're playing in Pebble Beach. Again, you have an opportunity to play at one of the great tournaments. It's a pro-am. You could probably bring one of your family with you and go and play with them at Pebble Beach on the PGA Tour, and a link-style course. Go and win that event. But so anything of we go and we play the best courses, we play the best events, like that sort of nonsense is gone when you go to Saudi Arabia the same week as a tournament like that. But these issues are going to crop up again and again and again, and like there is a bit of a war going on in golf with Saudi Arabia trying to bring these players, and I think it's a talking point for Shane Lowry. It's a controversy for Shane Lowry. It's certainly not a controversy for any of the American golfers, as we know.
It's interesting to see what taking a stand would actually look like in the golf world, because I would say you can safely say that Lewis Hamilton took a stand before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix by saying he wasn't comfortable racing there, by calling out the Saudi Arabian regime. And when we were talking about that on the show, we got a comment in from somebody saying, but don't race there, don't show up, don't actually race there. And what we were doing, just to finish my point, like what we were actually talking about in the aftermath of that race was, wow, what an incredible race in Jeddah. Lewis Hamilton versus Verstappen, oh my God, they touched a couple of times, that was absolutely insane. And is that not the very point of sports washing, that we were actually talking about this incredible thing that happened in this country? Now, personally, I think that I didn't agree with that commenter at the time, and I think that Lewis Hamilton took an amazing stand at that point, and I think he was rightly applauded for that. But I'm sure there are other people out there who think that he should have gone for it.
If you go over there and you host a press conference and you talk about stuff that that includes the murder of a journalist, the treatment of women, the treatment of migrants in that country, and you talk about that there, that's taking a stand. If you wear rainbow colours, highlighting issues around LGBT, that's taking a stand.
Yeah, listen, I think so too.
And so it's not beyond the possibility that some of the golfers do that, and that would be amazing, I think.
I think it's highly, highly unlikely.
Well, there you go. But we should have. My point here is that we should have higher expectations. We're entitled to have higher expectations, aren't we?
We are absolutely.
Because if that's just them, I'm out. I'm out. Like if it's just rich people's chess in a computer game where they're good athletes. Like that's it's very unattractive when you phrase it the way you phrased it. It's like this is just about money for these people. It's just rich people getting richer. They're throwing bundles of cash at each other, and sometimes they'll miss a putt for $500,000. Sometimes they'll make it. It doesn't really matter.
Well, a far more likely comment is, say, what Justin Rose spoke about over the last few weeks when he was talking about going. He said, obviously, Saudi is controversial, but I've been down there and I've enjoyed my time down there. It's actually a fun golf tournament, good golf course. Listen, they're trying to edge towards a more socially acceptable stance in their policies. You got to start somewhere, right?
Well, do you know what? I don't know.
And that is far more like the comment that you're going to get from the golfers who go down there. The Lewis Hamilton thing is totally different, much like it'd be like talking to Jeff Hendrick about playing for Newcastle when they're owned by Saudi Arabia. It is your job. He has no choice. He has to play for a club. He has signed for that club. He signed a contract. Lewis Hamilton drives for Mercedes. So he could have made that ultimate stance and said, you know what, I'm going to make one. And he may have gone down in the history books when we talk about him in 100 years. He sacrificed his Formula One title not to play in Saudi Arabia. Golfers are sole traders. They make this known all the time. They have choices themselves. It won't impact on anybody else. It won't impact, like, would people in Mercedes have lost their job if Lewis Hamilton didn't drive that day because of the collapse in revenue? Possibly. Likewise with Newcastle.
Unlikely.
It's still totally different for sure.
What has happened? But who knows? But I think golf is a totally separate thing because the only people benefiting from going are the golfers themselves. And it's not as if there's not another tournament where they could make money.
Yeah.
It's not as if they couldn't go somewhere else and still earn a heck of a lot of money. So they're making that decision.
Yeah. The sport is telling us who it is.
And
we should pay attention. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, look, let's move on, because yesterday in The Independent, Oisin Mullen was on the back of the paper, a story about him saying that he's still in Ireland and still hasn't gone down to Australia. Do we know anything more about this, Nathan? Because this is like a hinge moment for the season. I think this could it might not have an impact on the power rankings, but it will be close enough to be like they are a top 4 team, definitely. Without him, they're like clinging on to the top 4. Is that fair, Owen?
I don't know. I think they were a top 4 team comfortably last year without Cillian O'Connor. So you take out Oisin Mullen and you add in Cillian O'Connor, I think they're about the same, if not better.
The news out of Mayo seems to be right now there's no news, or nobody is saying anything, except that Oisin Mullen isn't in Australia, that he is still in Mayo, and if he had signed that contract and he has his jersey number to go to Australia, well, surely he would be gone by now. And obviously there were rumours pretty quickly that there was an issue around the contract. It doesn't seem as though it's an injury issue. It doesn't seem as though, there was he'd signed a contract, then there was a medical and something cropped up. Obviously he's had a couple of injury problems over the last few years. It does seem that there's been a breakdown potentially around the contract and that he hasn't gone. And clearly he was seen over the last week or so roaming the mean streets of Kilmaine and has been spotted, and everybody's getting very excited about it. James Horan didn't have a huge amount to say. It did seem when he won the Young Player of the Year again and the All-Stars that, why wasn't he asked about it? You would have thought it was a natural thing to ask him about it. So therefore, that would suggest that maybe he had asked not to be asked about it.
Yeah, but that's exactly when you ask.
Give an answer.
That's Gay Byrne's best ever
you're
thing.
You're like the L'Equipe.
Well,
I was going to say, you're like the L'Equipe journalist with Novak Djokovic, aren't you? Who said, well, he asked not to be asked about the vaccination of the Australian Open. So I thought, well, what would be the point in asking him?
Well, Gabo used to go, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And the guest would be like, oh, I really don't want to talk about this. And then the first thing he'd talk about is the thing that he was told not to talk about. Like, that's what you do. Is there anything you don't want to talk about here? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, you're right. It probably would be a complete game changer for Mayo if Oisin Mullen stays and Cillian O'Connor returns.
Oh, you're getting excited already.
Listen. Chasing defeat against Galway in the FBD League, is stopping everyone's cough. Galway are the real force in Connacht, as we know right now.
Galway are frauds. We established that yesterday.
You established that yesterday.
No, Eoin was like, Galway are fraudulent. Sure, you are correct.
It'd be huge. It'd be like, you can't get away from the fact that 2-time Young Footballer of the Year, entering the peak of his powers, heading off to Australia for God knows how long, would be massively damaging. And while Mayo have found a way of keeping the talent rolling, you can't just lose a player like that and expect to, as you say, that can be the difference. Maybe Cillian O'Connor would have been the difference in an All-Ireland final last year. Does Cillian O'Connor miss a penalty? I don't think Cillian O'Connor misses a penalty.
Probably not.
So...
Probably does not miss a penalty.
Well, I might go to cry again.
Okay, sorry about that. Go on quickly.
Well, our mentions have been flooded this morning with Cavan people after last night's win against Tyrone. The first day we bring the power rankings back, they're already in turmoil. They beat Tyrone by 15 points last night at Breffni Park. So apparently they need a good shot up the power rankings as well. So that's a little update on that front. It's already a mess.
Great.
One day in. We're not even 12 or 24 hours into the power rankings.
We'll have to do it next week as well. Mo Salah, he speaks to Marca and he speaks to GQ. He doesn't speak to anybody else, but when he speaks, he tends to say stuff that's relevant and interesting. So he's done an interview in connection with the GQ Sports issue. There's lots of pictures of him in tank tops, and he looks pretty good. He's a handsome man to the peak of his powers, and he wants to get paid properly, Nathan. He's not asking for too much. That was the standout line, was like, I'm not asking for anything, I'm not you. That's it. That's all. Ball's in their court. Pay me.
God, he looks good. The photos are, yes, everything he's wearing, I want to buy them. He is as slick as they come in those. Yeah, as is pointed out in the interview with GQ, he's not asking for anything he's not due, and all that charitable work he does doesn't come cheap, which was sort of the main tenet of the article, which I guess is a reminder of just how big a superstar Mo Salah is in his home country. That he's probably dealing with a pressure that maybe even Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo don't have to deal with, because they've come from historically successful footballing countries where there was a Eusebio and there was a Diego Maradona before them. There was nobody before Mo Salah. And the obsession when he goes back home just seems to be insane, that he cannot live anything like a normal life. He's not short of confidence. We don't hear a lot from Mo Salah, and there's something even just about the way he looks that there's a humbleness of Mo Salah in the perception of him. But I was even watching an interview he did with, I think it was a Liverpool website, where it was a real fluff piece of answering online questions, but he kept being asked about the best player in the world, and every time it was, well, obviously I'm going to say it's me. Obviously I think I'm the best player in the world.
Yeah.
So there's a proper and understandable, I won't say arrogance, because he probably is the best player in the world, but any sense that you would have from the outside of Mo Salah saying, oh, listen, I'm happy just to be in and around those names of Messi and Ronaldo. No. I vote for myself every year, is what he said. That he feels that he is the man, and well, right now he probably is.
I think we should recreate the Mo Salah photo shoot with Nathan, who says he wants to buy all the clothes. I mean, the sweater vest and bucket hat combo. Do you think you can do it?
Well, I don't know if anybody wants this. I don't know if anybody wants the sweater vest.
Come on.
More,
you did the Paul Mescal thing pretty quickly.
Actually,
we didn't have to twist your arm too much for that.
I did the Paul Mescal thing. I did, but there was a lot of clothes. Paul Mescal at least had quite. My legs are fine. It's other parts that I'm not keen on showing off. I will tell you a story of the night I met my wife, which was at a fancy dress party, and I went as Zoolander when Zoolander was in the mine. So you remember when Zoolander was in the mine? So I didn't so much look like Zoolander. I looked a bit more like Rabsy Nesbitt. So you see Mo Salah in that.
Nathan.
No, it would not be acceptable today. People would mistake that the Zoolander looked for something else.
Well, this was when he was it was basically the miner's hat and a vest.
And a clean face. A clean face, you're telling me. You had a clean face. Don't say no to that. You had a clean face.
No, I absolutely had a clean face.
Okay,
yes.
good man.
Yes, I absolutely had a clean face. But Mo Salah's wearing his £630 tank top from Saint Laurent. That's how I imagined I looked that night. But as I look at the photos years later, it was definitely more Rabsy Nesbitt.
And your wife loves you still to this day. It's a remarkable thing.
Somehow, she saw me at my lowest point.
Very quickly, Irish players who need transfers, all of them essentially in the Premier League at the moment. Well, with the exception of Omar Vandali does not need a transfer. He just needs to get in the team. But everybody else
no.
needs to get out on loan or to get out full stop.
Yeah, there's the stats at the end of the season are going to make for pretty grim reading. Looking at it last night, Seamus Coleman is the only Irish player who's playing on a regular basis. Shane Duffy obviously started the season very well, but he's in and out of the Brighton side now. We're fortunate we have a lot of players playing in the Championship. We probably don't spend enough time talking about those players or looking at the level that they're playing at, the success they're having. Most of them are playing all the time. The two that there's a real onus on are Matt Doherty and Jeff Hendrick, both of whom Stephen Kenny wants to be real key players and who I think have shown actually in Ireland's renaissance over the last few months that when they play well, Ireland play well. Yeah. But neither of them are playing any football. Doherty, it looks as though, is going to go back to Wolves. Hendrick probably is a big decision because I'm sure he's on a good contract at Newcastle. Maybe they're going to go and do things and you want to hang around and there'll be a change of manager every year and one of them might eventually like you and give you a game. But right now, he's not playing any football. He's 29. He's going to be 30 in the next few weeks. You got to get out. And maybe there's some of those younger players like Adam Ida is the one. I was just looking, it's 2 years pretty much to the day since Adam Ida played against Manchester United in the Premier League. That's a week after he scored a hat-trick for Norwich in the FA Cup. We were looking at him at that stage at 18 and thinking this guy's our centre forward for the next decade. Adam Ida in the 2 years since has started 4 games for Norwich in all competitions. 4 games. And he's had a couple of injury problems along the way. But from the excitement levels we had, it hasn't happened. And I think it's, it has found its way into his form with the Ireland team where he's had any amount of chances. He's played far more games for Ireland than he has for Norwich from the start and hasn't really had anything. So I think Ida more than Oma Bamidele of the two at Norwich needs to get out and maybe get a championship club and score a few goals and play a bit of football.
We'll come back to that because there's obviously a full month for us to talk about that. Nathan, good stuff this morning. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.